Hey guys, it's Bro You Whack, and in typical Bro You Whack epic gamer fashion, we're going to be doing the polar opposite from last week's top 5 episode. In this week's top 5 episode, where we're going to be looking at the top 5 worst passive abilities in Overwatch. Now, I'm always scared that the HANZO mains are going to come out of the shadows and watch this worst of top 5 episode and be like, actually, Bro You Whack, these passive abilities aren't bad, you're just bad. And that's the thing, is that I won't be calling these passive abilities bad, they're just the worst of the 14 passive abilities in Overwatch. And can you believe that? There's only 14, 5 of which I had to include in the best of in last week's episode, so I only have 9 to choose from. But I still managed 5 that aren't that great. They're not bad, so just understand that, man. But before I ultimately still call all of these passive abilities bad, let's vote in the top right-hand corner for next week's top 5 episode, but you know what you're gonna pick. We already know, even though it's the first option every single week, hoping that it'll influence you, it's ultimately gonna be the second option. We're gonna pick the top 5 best fan-made hero skins. I figure we're going into the 4th year of Overwatch, and looking at some of the best fan-made skins is something that we haven't done yet, and something that I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in, including myself. So it's like reverse psychology. If I want this to be next week's top 5 episode, you guys vote for it. It's still gonna be next week's top 5, no matter if I want it or not. But now that I try to convince you otherwise, now let's look at the top 5 worst passive abilities. Not bad, just worse. In fact, if I call any of these passive abilities bad, I promise to buy at least one HANZO gold gun every single time I do so. And it all starts here at the number 5 spot with HANZO's passive ability, which is wall climbing. This is such a bad passive ability. Now, even though that was clearly a joke, this isn't a bad passive ability, but what I find funny is that HANZO's counterpart, his brother, not only has this exact same passive ability, but an even better version, which allows him to double jump. So it's kind of like Daniel versus the cooler Daniel. And can you take a wild guess at who's the cooler Daniel? Even though it's a well-known fact that I do not like HANZO, it's just a straight up fact that Genji's is better than HANZO's. Like double jump versus no double jump? HANZO mains are still gonna try to argue that, and that's the funniest part. But overall, this isn't bad. In fact, it's still an effective, well-made passive ability, which is why it's so low on this list. It's just funny how it literally gets overshadowed by Genji, a better passive ability, which was in last week's top 5 episodes. So again, it's not bad, it's just not as good. Literally because it's not as good as Genji's. But when we get to the number 4 spot, this was a passive ability I really didn't want to include on this list because, again, it makes the hero a little bit better, but then when you really think about it, it's kind of counterintuitive for what he's all about. But this is going to be Baptiste's Exo Boost passive ability. Now, yes, I understand this is a passive ability that allows him to put himself into better positions, whether it's on the high ground, whether it's in a safer area, whatever the case may be. But you also have to imagine that Baptiste is really effective when it comes to the immortality field, and when you use this passive ability when you're in the immortality field, say for an example, you're jumping out of the immortality field into harm's way. And to make matters worse, you're jumping into a linear direction, which just puts you into harm's way of, say, a Widowmaker snipe, a HANZO snipe, a soldier, and on. It's just so predictable whenever you use your Exo Boost. Yeah, you have a little bit of leeway for when and where you want to drop, but it's still not something that really enhances Baptiste and can sometimes even hurt Baptiste because you're jumping out of a safe area, out of your little tumbler circle, and you could possibly die because, well, you were using a passive ability. This is just one of those passive abilities that is somewhat easily forgettable and is not really valued compared to, say, like Zarya's energy or to Genji's or heck, even HANZO's wall climb ability. But you also have to think about him being brand new and people really haven't learned to appreciate this passive ability, including myself. Baptiste mains, you're probably disappointed that this is on the list. I don't blame you, but it's But when we crack into the top 3 worst passive abilities in Overwatch, every single one of these I have a very strong argument as to why they're not the greatest passive abilities. They're a reason why they are not deserving of the top 5 best list, and in fact, deserving of the top 5 worst. But At number 3 is going to be everyone's favorite spicy Latina girl. It's going to be Sombra and her opportunist passive ability. This is what you call a lazy passive ability, because this notifies Sombra and only Sombra that someone on the enemy team is below 50 HP and is outlined in this red silhouette and you can see through walls. Now, yes, it does something. It enhances the Sombra experience, but this is where things become obsolete, because want to know what else can notify you that someone is below 50 HP? Your teammates! Your teammates can say someone is half, someone is 1. This is why this is a lazy passive ability. And some players will argue saying, well, I don't have teammates in game chat or my teammates are notifying me, and that's the problem right there! Ow, I hit my elbow. This is just one of those passive abilities that you have to ask yourself, what does it really do? Because knowing that the enemy player is below 50% HP through walls means that you as Sombra probably translocated out of there and is by a health pack and is not able to really do anything about it. And if you know that the enemy player is below 50 HP, well, you're probably in front of the player themselves. Plus, even if you were in game chat and you were able to tell someone that d.va is below 50 HP or the Winston is below 50 HP and you told your team, well, more than likely you're telling them because they're coming from spawn and they can't do anything about it. Or if they can do something about it, they already know they're below 50% HP because they're right in front of them. So you're just kind of feeding useless information that they already know about. The only time I see this passive ability actually being helpful and effective is when you as Sombra are actively going towards the team fight and say the HANZO and the Pharah just brought down the enemy d.va or Winston down below 50 HP and didn't have enough time to notify you, but that quick passive ability activates, which notifies you way faster than say someone speaking in voice chat, and that is the target that you know right away you want to focus on. This is one of those passive abilities that if they were to remove from the game, I don't think anyone's gonna start bringing up the conversation about Sombra being the worst hero of all time. Take away Zarya's energy, yeah, she's gonna be bad. Take away Genji's double jump and wall climb ability, yeah, he's gonna be ineffective. If you take away Sombra's ability to be able to see through walls when an enemy player is below 50 HP, what do you think's gonna happen? Exactly. But now that I just went on a full tangent just to defend myself from the egotistical Sombra players, now let's go on to number 2, because this is a passive ability that is so famous for actually hurting this specific hero that I had to include it somewhere, and this is going to be d.va and her EJECT passive ability. Baby d.va, gremlin d.va, out of suit d.va, whatever you decide to call d.va when she's not in her mech, this is a passive ability that's fun. I won't deny that. This is one of the most unique and greatest passive abilities of all time, but it hurts the gameplay flow. Have you ever heard of a stagger? Of course you have, because you're smart. You actually study up on Overwatch. If you know anything about d.va, she is the one hero that is always subject to staggering because of the fact that she has no way to defend herself and she can't really easily get a kill when she's in baby d.va form. Yes, it's possible if you're a godlike baby d.va player, but how many people claim that they're the #1 baby d.va player in the whole entire world? If you know that person, please give me their number so that I can get in contact with them, because I know they're the life of the party. I know they will get me laid, dog. But other than being a very fun passive ability and something that if you're good with, you can actually go into Discord and brag about to all your e-girls, this is something that just hurts d.va, man. I can't tell you how many times where I didn't have my d.va ultimate that I wish I just had the option just to like kill myself off so I didn't have to subject myself to staggering myself, or I didn't have to subject myself to just changing the pace and the flow of the game. Because a good team that gets d.va out of mech at the end of the team fight can waste anywhere from like 15 to 20 seconds and not allow her to get back into her mech and then kill her off. And then they have to wait an extra 5 seconds for d.va to respawn, regroup with her. So at that point, you basically just wasted half a minute because of a passive ability. Not because you were bad, not because the enemy team was great, they were coordinated enough. It's not any of that. It's because you were victim to d.va's passive ability and you had no choice. I can't tell you how many times I wish I could just kill myself off as d.va because I didn't want to have to deal with the possible stagger. It's so annoying when it happens, but it's the funniest thing of all time when you're the one doing it, man. The only thing keeping EJECT out out of the #1 spot is the fact that in key moments, I'm not even saying sometimes, in very, very key moments, it can dish out a hefty amount of damage to maybe secure you a kill. But what normally happens when you eject? You die or you get staggered. Most people don't practice with the bunny blaster, so they're not at all really that good with the bunny blaster to begin with. It's just one of those passive abilities that you forget as a passive, but then you also scoff at because, well, it's not really all that effective for the gameplay aspect of d.va. But wanna know what the #1 worst passive ability in Overwatch is? I bet you do, because I kind of joked about it last week of how it was the #1 passive, but it foreshadowed this week's episode. You know it's not that great. You know it's not that effective, but it just fits Junkrat perfectly. This is Junkrat's Total Mayhem passive ability. I feel like Junkrat players have always been somewhat understanding when it comes to their main not being the #1 hero in Overwatch, with the exception of like one oddball competitive season. Because Junkrat is one of those high-risk, high-reward heroes where, yeah, you can do a lot of damage, but you're so fragile. And this passive ability is literally that, where, yeah, it does a lot of damage when someone stands over your grenades that you just lobbed out whenever you die. But then you have to ask yourself, how many stupid players are there in Overwatch that are gonna see these bright red grenades over this dead Junkrat body and walk over it and die? Let me tell you a lot, because sometimes I wonder if these people are blind. At least when it comes to d.va's passive ability, when you're in baby d.va form, it's in your control of how effective you want to be. When it comes to Total Mayhem, everything's out of your control. Where your grenades drop, if anyone goes over your grenades, if anyone dies, yeah, maybe you can place yourself in a situation where you can die, but why would you want to do that as Junkrat? Why would you want to place yourself in a situation like, okay, this is a perfect place to die. If you know that perfect place, please let me know. That sounds bad now that I say that. Is it a good feeling every single time you get a kill with Total Mayhem? Totally. But besides that, it's like winning the lottery. Unless you actively plan to try to get a kill with Total Mayhem, but at that point, why wouldn't you want to try to plan to live as Junkrat? Unless you're playing around the trap and the tracer's not paying attention, but at that point, you either A, got a kill with Total Mayhem because the enemy player was just bad, or B, you got a kill with Total Mayhem because the enemy team wasn't paying attention. And that doesn't sound like a passive ability I really want, because it's not really in my control. It's reliant on the enemy team most of the time, and for me, I gotta die. Like, come on, bruh. But at least every single time this passive activates, it lets out a cute little clown sound, so I can't hate on it too much. But anyway, guys, that is my list of the top 5 worst passive abilities in Overwatch. Again, I'm not saying any are bad, but out of the 14, these are the ones that don't really help compared to the ones that actually do help, like I kept mentioning in this video. But let me know what you think are the top 5 worst passive abilities, or what you think are just, and I'm not gonna say the B word, are just the worst passive abilities in Overwatch. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. More Overwatch videos to come, and bye.